Hi there, welcome to Gaining Vision. I'm Melanie. Thanks so much for clicking. To my returning family, the Visionaries, thank you for your continuous love and support. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Please feel at home. Have you had an opportunity to subscribe to the channel yet? If not, do me a favor, take a second, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to like and share. Have you been paying attention to what's happening in South African politics? I definitely have, especially when it comes to the 5 EFF members who were found guilty and suspended for 1 month from participating in Parliament with no pay. As a broadcasting teacher, I'm always curious to see how journalists will cover politics in their interviews. So as I was scrolling through YouTube, I found many different perspectives and way of interviewing people. And today I've brought one interview in particular for us to analyze together. And to be honest, guys, this journalist had a little bit of difficulty with bias. But let's break it down. He started off great, setting the stage, letting us know what we're going to be listening to without bias. Let's take a listen.
Welcome back. This is still the conversation. Well, let's move to South Africa, where South Africa's opposition leader, Julius Malema, and 5 other MPs from his Economic Freedom Fighters Party were on Wednesday punished with a 1-month suspension without pay from Parliament. Now, the Parliament's Power and Privileges Committee found them guilty of contempt of Parliament for storming the stage during President Cyril Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address at the Cape Town City Hall in February.
See, no bias. It was clear. We knew exactly what to expect and we were ready for the interview. But after that, the bias kicked in. He was interviewing 2 very different people, an advocate from South Africa and an EFF member. And each of them were going to bring their own personal tone to it. And the journalists had an opportunity to ask clear, concise, and non-biased questions, but it didn't go that way. When he first started off interviewing the advocate, the very first question was, did you find the committee to be high-handed, and did EFF even have a case? Let's take a listen to how the advocate answered.
All right, let me start off with you, of course, MPUMELELO. Do you think the Parliament committee was too high-handed with the punishment, of the EFF? And also, do you think the EFF really, had a case when they staged that particular protest?
Well, I think before we even get to the sanction, we need to look at the process which was followed. Now, this particular sanction is arrived at when the EFF had walked out, citing a number of things that they needed to do before the actual process started. You can't go into any litigation on any disputed terrain without having the facts that you require or the evidence which are needed. So what the EFF had done was to come with a reasonable ground of saying that we can't continue today. Firstly, there's footage that we need, and there's other information which we require. Linked to that is that the person who's going to take the decision, which is the adjudicator, we have a problem with them because they may have the potential of being biased. They come from a political party. It is clear that they don't have the same views. Even the men which is going to be voted within a particular committee is going to be party specific and not the individuals who are going to be making those particular decisions. So it's basically the odds that we are against them in terms of the whole process that could be there. I do not want to call it a kind of report. However, the basic principles of natural justice are not being followed. And the next thing you'll find is a sanction that says you are suspended and you are going to be adopt a whole month's salary. So on that basis, I do not think that the procedure which was followed was fair. I did not think that they've looked at the actual merits of what has actually happened to the case. And that is what we don't know. Because if the leader of the EFF came to the city and was a witness, maybe you could shed more light as to the occurrence of the sequence of events on that particular day and what were the true intentions of them storming onto the stage.
I appreciated the fact that the advocate was going to stick to the law, not let this journalist pull along any bias. As the interview continued, he then asked a question about the fact that the EFF members didn't participate and how Julius Malema protested against the DA advocate leading the procedures. Okay, it could be all right. Let's wait and hear how the advocate answered this.
Now, on Monday, the EFF MPs actually refused to participate in the hearings against them after the committee declined their request for postponement. And we also understand that Mr. Malema protested against the appointment of Advocate Anton Kaz as the initiator, in the hearing for racial reasons. Why do you think that is?
Now, you see, whenever a matter is to be adjudicated, you need to have a level of comfort with the adjudicator is going to be fair and not to be biased in any manner. So when testing whether there will be potential bias or not within the South African context, you don't look at it from an objective perspective. You look at it from a subjective perspective from a person who's making the application. Now, in this case, the leader of the EFF is saying, I come from a certain political party. The person that you have there, the presiding officer, is my rival. The chances of them finding against me are actually high because they do not like me, or there's nothing in which we find in common except for us being in parliament. In the same way in which any other individual, especially from those from parliament, they've had a problem. If the person who was the presiding officer would have been a person from the EFF. So on those basis, I think the leader of the EFF, Mr. Malema, was quite correct to say, you are not leveling the playing fields when it comes to this particular dispute that we are resolving here. I do not have the trust that the person is going to be sitting and adjudicating on this matter is going to come to a principal conclusion. Same applies to the committee that is there. You are dealing with a committee of political parties that don't like each other. That's the long and short of it. So the chances of them finding against the leader of the EFF or anyone who is within their opposition is quite high. But what was important, if you put biasness aside, is the process of saying that I want to go into this process having all the tools of trade in which I need in order to defend my name. And if one of those tools of trade is that I must have the full footage and the full evidence or comprehensive evidence so that I'm able to argue my case, unless there's privileges that has been shown which would be suffered by Parliament, there was no reason whatsoever in order for the presiding officer to say, let's continue. Remember, they were making this application for the very first time. It is not as if they were given enough time to go and deal with the matter, and then they came back and found more excuses. It's the single attempt for a postponement, and even that particular postponement was not a reasonable time, an unreasonable amount of time that was requested. So on this basis, they've used a very narrow approach of deciding whether this postponement should be granted, and a very harsh approach of deciding that you are going to proceed, not having had the merits or not having had the sign of the EFF in this matter.
All right, I was still hoping there was hope here, guys, but the next question told me that was it. This was going to be a biased interview. This is when the journalist asked the advocate, as the EFF are known to be confrontational, outspoken, and radical. What? Really? Really? And listen, as the advocate answers, he gets defensive. He doesn't even like to hear what has to say. So throws to the clip. Look at the clip. They're rowdy. They're aggressive. Take a listen and tell me your thoughts.
I mean, the EFF is one party that is known to be confrontational, very outspoken, and sometimes quite radical. I mean, don't you think that sometimes they take it, a bit overboard when it comes to some pressing some of their issues? And at some point, it looks like they seem to cross certain lines. Do you also share that line of thought?
Not really. You see, a person is going to express...
Some have even considered them some sort of political distraction.
Not at all. You remember, what they are doing is voicing their political perspective as any other party would do. The mere fact that they do it with a bit of vigor compared to other individuals that are there does not necessarily mean that they should be heard, does not necessarily mean they should be in control. And if they've crossed the line, then what you must do is that you must employ those corrective measures and do the assessment of whether the line has been crossed, and then allow that particular process to come to an end and come to a conclusion. In doing that, make sure that the playing fields are okay. Listen to them and listen to where they are coming from, and then adjudicate on the matter. Now, you can't say you're going to listen to them, and yet you are bringing in a presiding officer that has the potential of being biased. Then the same presiding officer then says, I'm not going to allow you any postponements because I want to proceed with this matter. Obviously, you go into the battleground when the playing field is not level. You are going to lose no matter what good arguments you may come in. a perception is given that at the end of the day they're not going to suffice or they're going to be found not guilty. So it is within those instances in which maybe it must be looked at. And another thing, no one has ever prescribed as to how political parties are supposed to behave in Parliament except the rules of Parliament that ought to be followed. So the mere fact that I talk in a soft-spoken voice or I use a radical military voice when I'm speaking, it doesn't matter just as long as my point goes across, and that's the characteristic of that particular political party.
I mean, on the screen right there, you can see, of course, the last time they staged a protest, at the parliament. There you can see the rowdiness that happened. They even got into scuffle with some security detail and parliament members. I mean, it still beckons the question, would you say all of this actually represents democracy in South Africa?
If that particular sitting had said, and you had listened to the EFF as to what they were intending when they went into that particular stage, and there was careful scrutinization of what actually took place, as to who attacked who first, were they standing, were they charging towards the president, or was it a matter of sitting, going and sitting on the stage and not moving? That we would have been able to come to that conclusion of saying that are these particular individuals engaging in violence? There's been a number of instances in which leaders, especially when it comes to petroleum entities, when they go into a stage, there'll be a number of protesters that go into the stage with them and simply stage their protests. They've never been interpreted as being violence. They've never been interpreted as wanting to cause harm to whoever CEO is on that stage, which is why it's important then that every single action and sequence of events must be scrutinized. And the only way in which we'll be able to do that is give the EFF the footage which is looking for, which has not been tampered with, so that when they go into an arena, you are then able to say, this is the process which was followed. If you look at that video now, the one that I'm watching, you can see that it's individuals with white shirts which are charging towards the EFF. All the EFF has done is go into the stage and stand there. Then the question is that particular action an action that can be regarded as attacking the president of South Africa? If the answer is yes, maybe yes, they were justified. But if the answer is no, then we have to look at it in another form of which protest in South Africa is allowed, and the manner in which people protest is different depending on where you are. That's the assessment that we've missed in order to be able to follow due to the presiding officer taking a hard stance.
The journalist could have had such a great opportunity to pose a question in a different way. He could have said, do you feel that the EFF communicated effectively? As the advocate shared, the fact that everybody has a different communication style, and as long as you communicate your point clearly, whether you're soft-spoken or a little bit more vital, then it's okay. But the journalist really showed his bias in that question. There was an opportunity for him to pick up. I thought he was on the right track when he asked, how do you think that this is going to impact the EFF in the elections? I thought, yes, an open-ended question, finally. But he followed it up with, and how do you think South Africans are going to feel about the disposition they show relatively? No, no, no. Why did he add that second question? If he had only asked the first question, he would have been fine. Let's listen how the advocate answered.
Now, how much of an impact do you think that this will actually have on EFF's political positioning, particularly once the election season kicks off? And how do South Africans view their recent disposition?
Well, we have to think of it this way. If you say the EFF is not allowed to be in Parliament for a month, that you are then saying EFF is not supposed to participate in democratic processes of the country for a month. They were not selected or nominated by any other political parties except the people of South Africa. So if the people of South Africa have said, we want you to be in Parliament and discuss certain issues, that's exactly what should happen. It can't be that a handful of individuals or a committee is going to decide for the number of voters in which voted for the EFF that your political leaders are not going to participate in this process. If someone has misbehaved in any process that is there, it is up to the presiding officer to say, we are going to punish you as an individual and not any other party that is there. So it must be a process of saying, protect the gist or the intention of the political process which was intended by you participating in Parliament at all costs, and make sure that you don't take it away at best. Because if you say they can't participate for a month and they come back in Parliament maybe during the month of February, That's when the parliamentary or the State of the Nation debate is being discussed. We're basically saying key individuals of the EFF should not participate in an annual scene-setting event of parliament in which they ought to participate.
As this interview continued, I thought maybe when he gets the EFF member, things will get a little bit better. But unfortunately, guys, I hate to tell you, it didn't. In his very first question, he posed wanting to know what the EFF member thought about the verdict. He's in his question said, as a strong member of EFF, as if that discredits his answer because he's a member of EFF, then he's going to be biased.
All right, now, what is your immediate reaction? I mean, you are a strong member of the EFF to the recent decision by the parliament to suspend its leader, that's Julius Malema, and 5 other MPs, from the Senate for a month without pay. What exactly is your immediate reaction?
It is not the first time that the Parliament of South Africa is doing this, and in all instances they have failed dismally, because we'll definitely be approaching the judiciary, the courts of South Africa, and we will make our case heard by the independent judiciary of South Africa, and the courts will rule in favor of the EFF, as it has done before on similar instances where in Parliament issued some sanctions for no apparent reasons against the EFF.
And then he goes to talk about the racial question that Julius Malema posed about the advocate. And the EFF member let him know exactly what he thought about that. Let's take a listen.
On Monday, the EFF MPs refused to participate in the hearings against them after the committee declined their request for postponement. Also, Mr. Malema protested against the appointment of Advocate Anton Kaz, as the initiator in the hearing for racial reasons. Would you like to shed more light on this particular scenario? Why did the EFF actually decline a meeting, and of course requested for a postponement? And why did Mr. Malema actually make such a comment?
I think you are very, very, very wrong, my brother. We need to correct you decisively. There was never a racial comment by our president and members of parliament when they were appearing before that committee.
He said, maybe I should read the quote. He said that he cannot be persecuted by a white man.
I think you must take it into the context.
Please enlighten me.
He did not say I cannot be persecuted. He did not say I cannot be prosecuted by a white man. All he said was that this white man is a great supporter of the Democratic Alliance. This white man has always been a counsel, an attorney, and an advocate and a legal service provider to the Democratic Alliance, which is a racist white political party in South Africa. He cannot be prosecuted by an attorney or a lawyer and initiator who is actually the legal advisor and representative of your opponent outside the parliament. I hope I have clarified this and you have got it right, and you will never again repeat that mistake.
We just need that clarity. That's why we're having this conversation, right? Anyway, before I let you
have got the clarity. Mr. Kaz always rendered his services to the Democratic Alliance, whose members were sitting in the committee that was going to charge our leaders, and who is in cahoots with the ruling party, and they are our opponents as we approach the May 2024 elections. And you can't be prosecuted by a person who is also a judge in your matter. The committee has actually reduced itself into a police, a judge, and a jailer.
All right, thank you so much for your time. GODRICH Agadi, Head of International Relations in the EFF, South Africa, and also MPUMELELO ZIKALALA, a legal practitioner from Durban, South Africa. Thank you so much once again, gentlemen, for your time.
I think in context is so important. And as a journalist, we need to remember that context is everything, from the way we pose our questions to the way that we listen to the answers. If the journalist had prepared appropriately, he would have understood the context of the statement the leader had made, the fact that he wasn't going to be persecuted by a white man. After listening to the EFF's members' response, I think it's clear, and now, going forward, he will never make that mistake again. As I mentioned, any journalist that interviews anybody in politics has to be prepared. And of course, there's going to be different ways to ask your questions, but always be safe to ask open-ended questions, not to let your bias or opinion sneak in. Now, it's hard sometimes because we all have our own opinions and biases, because that's natural. But as a professional, as a journalist, it is our job to bring media and information to our consumers of media in a fair and equitable way. Do you feel that this journalist accomplished that, or did you see some bias? I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas. And what are your thoughts on the topic of the 5 EFF members being suspended? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's have a conversation. Until next time, please don't forget to hit that notification button, like and share, and we'll see you later. Bye.